All right, let's get into this week's mailbag. You can email info@davidpakman.com, and many of you do. Let's go through some emails that I received, some interesting ideas, thoughts, all sorts of different things. All right, first message today is from Bryce. Bryce is thinking like a expert on cults, quite frankly. And Bryce says, David, is it just me, or when Trump eventually passes away, all the Trump supporters will be acting like he's going to come back and resurrect like Jesus? What are your thoughts? That's Bryce from New York. Yeah, I mean, listen, there's no question that there are many cult-like elements surrounding Donald Trump, and he is seen almost as a pseudo deity, as a demigod by some of his followers. And when Trump famously said, I could shoot people on Fifth Avenue and not lose support, he was latching on to something very real, which is that for many of his followers, the facts don't really matter. It's the idea of Trump that they care about. Now, when Trump eventually passes away, will people literally think he's going to resurrect like Jesus? That's probably a little bit of an exaggeration, but not that by that much. I do think that he will be deified in death by whoever is still with him at that time. People are still flying. Look, I mean, just drive around in most parts of the country. You can still find some Trump 2020 flags, which might even have something added onto it like Biden lost or now let's go Brandon or something like that. They are still deifying him in a sense in life, and I expect them to in death. Literal resurrection ideology, probably not. That's probably a little too far, but it's Trump. It's Trump, so maybe. I wouldn't ever assume the answer is impossible. Justin wrote to me and said, microchips are real. Sir, David, does no one else see the connection? The reason why there are microchip shortages for new vehicles is that they were all used in the production of the vaccines, which, with much respect, Justin. Yeah, I know Justin's kidding. And there is this funny way. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not funny, when different conspiracy theories or different data points come together to foment a conspiracy theory. This one's kind of funnier. We have a microchip shortage for cars because all the microchips are in the vaccines. This one's just funny. The one that's not so funny, though, is the one we looked at on Monday of someone speaking at some school board meeting and explaining that what ties all of this stuff together, who profits from the vaccines, who controls the deep state, all of this different, it's the Jews. And that was one woman beautifully tying together in her mind, disgustingly in reality, but beautifully in her mind, tying together all of these different conspiracy theories and saying the Jews are responsible for all this stuff. We knew that it was happening because of reports. We saw it happen very, very real in a real way over the weekend. Next email is from Alan. Alan says, in response to my video about, are there really any anti-vaccine religions? Alan said, you overlooked an important point on religious vaccine exemptions. Alan says, David, sir, I heard your segment on religious exemptions for vaccines, and although you did a great job analyzing the situation, I think there's an important aspect you overlooked. I was teaching at a Catholic high school until the end of last year. Now I'm in a public school, thankfully, and the biggest debate was on the morality of how the vaccines were developed, and not that vaccination is specifically against the religion. What I'm referring to is the cell lines of aborted fetuses used in development of the vaccines. Although we had a decent percentage of our community staff, students, and families get vaccinated, we had multiple people hesitant or objecting because of the cell line usage. Again, this is not explicitly the Catholic faith saying the members are forbidden from getting vaccinated, but it does introduce a lot of hesitancy, which I'm sure exists throughout most Christian faiths. Love your show, Alan. Yeah, a few people emailed me about this, and this is a good point, which is my discussion last week was about, is there actually a religion that is just against vaccination? There are individuals who are saying, because I am against abortion and because fetal cell lines were used in the development of the vaccines and the technology, even though there are not fetal cells in the injection, that is being used by some, but I did miss it. I should have mentioned it. I agree. But it's different than the question of simply, it's against my religion, because that seems to allude more to the specific teachings of religion about vaccines. And I think I should have mentioned it. I'm glad that people emailed in about it. Gareth wrote in, this is actually an important topic. Gareth says, very suspect Florida numbers. Hey, David and the crew, do the Florida numbers not seem incredibly low considering the case rate is almost 1,500, yet only one death per day? I've attached a photo, and the photo is exactly what Gareth describes. So there's two things going on in Florida. One of them I've talked about. In Florida, they've done this thing where they report the deaths on a delay. So each week, they report the deaths from the previous week. And so it always makes it look like over the last 7 or 8 days, deaths have just declined almost to zero. But it's been going on for months. Like for months, if you look at the recent deaths, it looks like the last 7 days are almost zero. Then they update it and then it shows up again. So that's one part of it. I also more generally, though, am wondering whether Florida is just lying or not fully reporting or not collecting. Not collecting would be the most sort of realistic explanation, because the numbers just look bizarrely low relative to what's going on in other states. We're seeing case declines in the United States, but even the numbers more generally in Florida after the 7-day kind of like holding period, it looks weird. It looks weird. So I think if we're going to say Florida's lying, we really need evidence. But I think that what we could suspect is, given Florida's lack of concern at the governor's level for controlling COVID, and given DeSantis's lack of interest in being particularly transparent, we know this based on that person who was fired for putting together the COVID dashboard that more accurately reported the data. It wouldn't be shocking if there's just a sort of like, we don't really care about fully reporting, not someone going in and saying, lie, change these numbers. But it wouldn't surprise me if there was sort of like an indifference and there wasn't full reporting currently going on. Certainly possible. Tommy wrote to me about Trump rallies and said, hi, David, I think you're going to find this quite interesting. Yet every time I see a Trump rally, I see the same two people in the background. One is a black guy with a white shirt saying blacks for Trump. And the guy beside him is wearing a green shirt, veterans for Trump. Now there's two different rallies. They're both behind Trump. Here are the photos. By the way, love your show. Yet Tommy is completely right that veterans for Trump, I'm less sure of, but we're seeing some of the same supposed blacks for Trump supporters show up at multiple rallies. My position on this is as follows. When you try to find information about Blacks for Trump as a group, there's almost nothing on the internet. There's just you try to figure out who are the members, who's in charge, what is the group, what exactly do they do. You find essentially nothing. So the reaction from many is this is a fake group, and the campaign is paying black people to stand behind Trump during rallies to make it seem like he has black support. Now, I've stopped short of saying that because I don't know that to be true. And for me, it feels a little weird to basically say a movement of minority folks claiming to have a particular position is by definition astroturf or fake. Unless I have real evidence that that's what's going on, I'm not comfortable saying that. It feels weird to me. But in terms of data points, we do know that the group Blacks for Trump has almost no footprint online, which is strange in 2021, that there are times where it's been alleged that Trump-affiliated groups have been recruiting what are essentially actors, people to stand holding signs at events. Not saying they were recruiting black folks specifically, but we have that as a data point. And some of the same people appear at multiple of these rallies. So that's what we know. I'm not ready to say it's all paid actors, but we've gotten a number of emails about this, and it certainly seems as though there may be something to it's not clear how real Blacks for Trump is as an organization. I'm completely comfortable saying that. Next email is from Andrew, and it's called COVID, the New Culture War. Hello, David, says Andrew. I believe that COVID is the new culture war among Republicans, such as the whole Merry Christmas culture war, when I didn't know of anyone on the left who really cared if somebody used Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays. At least the Merry Christmas culture war wasn't deadly, as today's Republicans have literally entered into a death cult. Also, I think all these police officers quitting for refusing the vaccine is a good thing, since the majority of them support Trump, and as a result, the police brutality rate will most likely go down. A few people have actually emailed me that saying, aren't the cops quitting over the vaccine thing exactly the cops that we've been saying are the bad apples that we want out anyway? I don't know that for sure, but it's a very interesting hypothesis, which is when we talk about police brutality, etc., I believe we accurately say it's a very small minority of bad apples, which can spoil the bunch for sure. If there's overlap between the police brutality people and the cops refusing to get the vaccine, maybe we benefit from them quitting and no longer being police officers. It's a hypothesis, folks. It's a hypothesis. That's all we're saying. In terms of the left doesn't really care about Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays, I agree. I've never met anyone who expressed being angry about Merry Christmas being said at a store. What I would always do, without getting offended, just as like a kind of joke, is if someone said Merry Christmas to me, I would say Happy Hanukkah. I wasn't mad. I didn't later complain. It's just my immediate reaction. They're saying something to me based on what they celebrate. So I don't celebrate Christmas, but I respond saying Happy Hanukkah. And if it's not relevant to them, maybe the next time they go, oh, maybe I'll say Happy Holidays because Merry Christmas might not be, or it's like no big deal. I just kind of found it funny. It's how I entertain myself at grocery stores. But yeah, I've never met anyone who was like mad or said, I need to speak to the manager. Someone said Merry Christmas. It is a trumped up culture war for sure. Okay, last email today. This is a different one. We had a lot of substantive emails, positive emails, questions, comments. This is Mark. Mark writes to me about garbage and says, your left-wing garbage and propaganda is the root, or the root, as some say, of everything wrong with our country. You have no business being on the air. You are garbage. That is Mark, presented without comment, as we get into what will hopefully be a great weekend for everybody. Thanks for joining me. We've got a fantastic bonus show planned for you, and we will be back next week with so much more. Sign up at joinpakman.com. Get instant access to today's bonus show. Otherwise, no more new content until Monday, when we'll be back with our next show.